I am the chapter president for Chicago. We did not get hit by a blizzard, so sorry to all of our East Coasters that did. Because we have one panelist that isn't here today because of that, which is George Hammer, so he won't be making it due to the blizzard. But we have an amazing panel here. I will let each of them introduce themselves and who they are, where they're from, their companies, and we're going to get into it with Beacons.
Great. I'm Kristin, Scheve, VP Media Director at DigitasLBi in Chicago, and also our mobile practice lead for the office. Excited to talk about and debate what's going on with Beacons today.
I'm Marc, one of the co-founders of Giant Spoon. We are a year-and-a-half-old agency. We split off. Co-founders were all at Omnicom's OMD before this. We focus on marketing, strategy, innovation, and keeping clients ahead of things like Beacons.
My name is Friedland, Director of Marketing at Levi, just up the road from here, and I oversee all of our account marketing, including in-store. I love Beacons. And I keep calling it.
That's a great way to start. I heard Beacons when you did the bumper sticker.
When I first heard the term, I thought somebody had said bacon, and I was like, I love bacon.
Bacon's always a winner. So, okay, so Marc, let me start with you. Because you talked about innovation as being part of, what you do. Where do you see Beacons playing as part of that innovation? They're a new communication channel, right? Where do you see the opportunities there?
I mean, immediately, it's definitely shopper marketing, in-store. That's where the world is already taking off, where the retailer has an app, and they can start messaging through that app using Beacons and start to make those connections between when someone's in the store, can get lots of data after they're in the store, and then be more relevant, contextual, when they're giving a message directly to something when they know which aisle they're in, or just the fact that they know they're in the store. And I think that's going to be 90–95% of what Beacons are really about, but it's the extra 5–10% that we yet to be determined, the crazier idea of what Beacons can really do. And start thinking about ways that can be integrated into outdoor advertising, and messages and experiences that can be built off of that. So as part of when we say we're keeping the clients ahead of things like Beacon and making sure that innovation is part of what we're doing, we're experimenting with them and doing test cases where trying to and it's a little bit of theory right now, but imagining what if a world is full of Beacons and consumers are using them on a day-to-day basis, what kind of new experiences can we start to create for brands? So it's beyond just the promotional stuff, the in-store stuff, the bigger things that we can start to do. So there's some brand connection there as well.
Speaking of brands, Paul, I'm going to turn it over to you because you're Levi's, you're a brand, right? So what I think is really interesting that I see today is that we talk a lot about the future of Beacons, right? And there's a lot of potential. I think all of us had a little chat earlier and we can agree on that there's potential in the future there. But what is it today? What does it look like between 2014 and 2015? In 2014, I feel like I saw a lot of pilots and a lot of testing and a lot of deployment about mid-year, about getting these things into the field and seeing how they run. What is your experience and what do you think is going to happen in 2015 with brands and retailers?
Sure. So we did a test in the fall of 14, years ago. So integrating Beacons out of home, and we went to San Francisco, and we partnered with an app. And essentially, when consumers walked by, if they had the app, they got pinged with a message that said, "Hey, Levi's has a great offer for you. Please go and check out our store." And if you tapped on the call to action on the push notification, it took you to actually a really nice branded experience with an offer, a drive to retail, because it was obviously done close proximity to our store. And then you went in and it kind of went from there. And probably the most amazing stat, and I just got it this morning, so I wrote it down, so I did not sleep well last night, 21% open rate. And then all the folks that actually got the message, 12% went in store. So it was a significant traffic driver for us. And then I think when you talk about what does that look like for 15, and whether it is our owned and operated doors, whether it is some of our larger national scale partners, part of that is, what's the message, what's the engagement, what's the consumer goes into the store, and to be able to tie
just made here. So in that specific example around conversion and driving traffic, because that is the ultimate goal, right? When you drive traffic into a physical location, we want to convert those shoppers into buyers. So did you experience that lift in conversion? I mean, I think it's a huge accomplishment with driving the traffic, but did you also close the loop with the conversion?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got a long way to go in terms of being able to measure some of those results, and I think, for us, literally just the ability to test something like that and be able to have the measurement around driving traffic was a pretty significant win. There are operational challenges on the inside in terms of being able to then say, what did that convert to? But I think we're also really confident that we have a great experience once somebody goes into a store. And we do typically see a really high conversion rate as well. It's just getting them there.
Fantastic, and I think that speaks to, for an in-store experience, the challenge of lacing all the pieces together, right? And then the journey that the retailer brand has to take to create that measurement around the results of that. So you have the opportunity, Kristin, to work with a lot of brands. What do you see that has been successful with those, and then what are some of the challenges that you've seen when you talk to brands and advertisers?
Sure. I think, as you mentioned, there's a lot of clients that we have at Digitas that have piloted a lot of programs, but are still waiting on what those early signs are of success, because it is such a new medium that I think how you are going to define the measurement and what's going to make it successful is going to be a little bit different. And you might not see it in terms of efficiency, which some other panelists talked about earlier, but in terms of how effective it is, I think is still up for debate, especially depending on the specific brand that you're working on. I do think, however, that the opportunities, yes, with retail is right in front of us, but there's also significant opportunity outside of retail in a lot of applications that beacons have, especially thinking of the future as more and more places roll out beacons beyond just retailers, thinking about how we can marry beacon data with traditional location-based data to build out a lot of rich profiles on people. I think that is where a lot of the opportunity is, and where you'll see a lot of other brands play outside of the retail space.
So that's an interesting point too, because we talk a lot about retail in relation to beacons being the direct association around couponing, messaging, loyalty. I did have a great conversation with someone that heads up Moderator. Marc, I think I mentioned this to you in an earlier conversation, and their application over the last year's festival, it's a company called AC Entertainment out of Nashville, and they co-create the Moderator event. So they use it for messaging around, they deployed about 100 beacons throughout the event, and it was a great application of beacons, but just information around where's the water, reminding people to stay hydrated, helping them find where they were located in terms of their camping arrangement. So they found, I think, a really great use case for beacons. Marc, you're nodding your head.
I think it's a customer service opportunity too, where you're at a festival, and we've seen this at, I think, CES this year had beacons sort of distributed throughout it. South by Southwest last year had beacons distributed throughout. And it's a way for those organizations to communicate with members, but then think about you are a passenger on American Airlines flight and it gets canceled. So for American Airlines to know that, okay, your flight just got canceled, very sorry about that, but we know you're in the area and we can directly message to you. Here's a free download code for a movie or something to pass the time. That kind of stuff where you can start to really zero in on specific instances. You can really elevate the customer service with something like this.
So I'm going to challenge you a little bit on that. I'd like Paul to weigh in on this as well. When we talk about customer service elements and customer experience, I think I'm an advocate for that in the retail environment especially. But I think, is it a challenge on the retailer side to say, where's the value in that? Where's the ROI in that for me if I'm going, oh, you're laughing, right? I mean, can you help me understand what a brand and retailer is thinking about there?
Yeah, I think with everything, it's, the ROI, and I think part of the challenge is kind of setting expectations. But I also think part of the discussion, and other panelists have talked about this before, is, beacon unto itself or mobile unto itself is fine, but
interesting. So when we're looking at weekends, from your perspective then, it doesn't sit in a silo, right? It's part of a holistic campaign, which I think is a huge takeaway. So do you think that helps with, I'm going to get to the adoption question that just looped me right into that. So is that part of what the challenge has been, and I'll just throw it out to everybody, in terms of adoption? Because I think this crowd, we're all